Welcome to this latest edition of the Ril Dil podcast. I'm your host, Ril Quinn, recording this on a Monday as I discuss the world of sports and pop culture. A busy weekend in the world of sports, and I still have not seen Sinners, by the way. So it's been real hard to stay away from spoilers. I'm going to see it this upcoming week. I heard it was a must see, so I'm definitely going to check that out. But a lot going on in the world of sports this weekend. You had a great weekend. If you're the NBA and you're Adam Silver, you got to be. I understand there are a number of series that are 3-1. There has been some high quality basketball, some dramatic basketball, to say the least. And that's where we're going to begin. Um, in Minnesota, where the Minnesota Timberwolves have put the Lakers on the brink with a dramatic win yesterday afternoon. The Lakers, if you're the Lakers, you get another great performance out of LeBron James. LeBron was all over the place, especially in the fourth quarter defensively. You got another great scoring performance out of Luka Doncic. You got probably his best performance of the series out of Austin Reeves, but it wasn't enough. This game was about two things. It was about the overall depth of the Minnesota Timberwolves, which has been the difference in this series. Minnesota has outscored the Lakers in every fourth quarter of this series, every fourth quarter. And most importantly, it was about the ascension of a guy who, whether he wants to or not, has a chance to be the face of the league. He's in the conversation of being the face of the league. And if you are somebody who gives a shit about American basketball, as we all do, you're actually rooting for him possibly to be the face of the league, just for the sake of America. In terms of Anthony Edwards, this was a Anthony Edwards game. Anthony Edwards, he arrived. He arrived last year in the playoffs when he outplayed Kevin Durant, and Devin Booker, and kind of pushed Phoenix aside, swept them last year, made it all the way to and eliminated Jokic on their Denver on their home court in their classic Game 7 comeback, the 20-point comeback on the road, and made it all the way to the conference finals, where of course they fell to Luka and the Dallas Mavericks. But so he announced himself last year. And this guy, look at this year. Started out the year, I think, thought taking too many 3-pointers, still trying to figure out the team. They make the big Carl Anthony Towns trade. They get Julius Randle. They get DiVincenzo. They're a much deeper team than what they were last year. So it took them a lot of the season to figure it out, but they finally have figured it out. And right now they're rolling. They're 17. They end the season off 17-4, and he is the number one reason why he yesterday afternoon was playing a different game. He goes 43, 9 and 8. He goes right after LeBron James in a way that very few players, especially young players, challenge LeBron like that. Very few players. You look over the course of LeBron's career. You'll have Kevin Durant will come at him. Kobe Bryant, of course, when he was in his prime, wouldn't hesitate to go at him, of course. But you don't see guys you don't see young guys. Young guys normally, from what I've seen, have deferred to LeBron in terms of how hard they competed against LeBron. When I mean compete against him, I'm talking about physically challenging him and challenging him in a real way, not showing him too much respect. I've seen players show LeBron too much respect. That's what I think happened to Paul George in his career. You look at the numbers, he's destroyed Paul George, and Paul George in prime, Paul George was a legit top 10, sometimes even top 5 talent. Paul George has finished top 3 in the MVP one year. So what Edwards is doing to LeBron and saying to LeBron is, hey man, look, I respect you. Um, you've helped me, but I don't, I'm here. When I'm on the court with you, I don't care who I'm on the court with. I think I'm the best player on the floor. And that's how he carries himself. And he has the game to back it up. This is not Deion Waiters' irrational confidence. Right? He has Deion Waiters' irrational confidence. But I shouldn't even sorry call it irrational confidence. He has that type of level of confidence in the game to back him up. He's been the best player in the series. He has been since he walked in, yesterday afternoon, what triggered his explosion yesterday was a late run in the first half where he starts physically challenging LeBron. He gets hot at the end of the half. They end up taking the lead. And despite a near perfect half out of LeBron and an excellent half out of Luka, the Lakers are down by three. Amazingly, the Lakers were down by three. I was like, how are they down by three? They've completely controlled this game up to that point. And if you're a Laker fan, you knew that they were in trouble. Lakers have a big third quarter, have a huge third quarter. Um, and again, it didn't matter because the constant recurring theme of this series has been Minnesota dominating the fourth quarter because they have a much better bench. But again, Edwards, if Edwards is going to develop into a above average to great playmaker, then it's game over because he has the rest of his game. He has a jump shot. He has a decent mid range. Of course, he can get to the hole at will. No one can stay in front of him. Physically gifted of a perimeter player in the league right now. The guy is like 6'7", 230 pounds. Can finish with anybody. He gets to a point to where he becomes again an above average playmaker with the assists and figuring things out and becomes somewhat of a chess player on the court. It's absolutely game over, and he will be a championship player. I'll be interested to see, can they get him in the future a legit number two player as a co-star. But that's another conversation for another day. But last night, yesterday afternoon, you talk again, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, 43 points. Um, got to the free throw line 17 times. Took 10 3-pointers, but also went to the free throw line 17 times. And again, he's getting to the line double digits. There's no way that anybody can stop him. Lakers have no matchup for him. He's too strong for anybody. Lakers don't have that. Don't have a top. You need a top level perimeter player to like. You need a Lewis. You need a Lou Dort. You need a Kawhi Leonard in his prime to kind of combat Anthony Edwards. That's the type of physical. That's the type of physical presence you need on the perimeter. Going, Tony Allen back in the day. There's no one that the Lakers have that can remotely even has any chance of guarding him, and he certainly exploited that during over the course of this series. Um, Listen, Uh, Lakers had opportunities to win this game. Of course, you get outscored 32-19. A lot of people came after JJ Redick about playing the same lineup for the entire second half. Of course, this is a series that Jackson Hayes frankly cannot play in, so you replace him with Dorian Finney-Smith. Finney-Smith was okay. I mean, Dorian Finney-Smith, did have 8 rebounds and 6 assists. Didn't shoot the ball well, but he's not on. They don't need him to score, but he did he had 8 rebounds, 6 assists. But the problem is you have a 40-year-old LeBron, you have a Luka Doncic that is not the greatest condition. He's not in the greatest shape, as we all know, despite his otherworldly talent, especially offensively. And you're gonna wear down, and Lakers lack size. You're gonna wear it. I mean, Minnesota can get anything they want in the paint. There's no real protection that the Lakers have. They don't have too much resistance. Look at the games Minnesota has won. Look what they've scored. They've scored 117, 116, and 116. So they're like Minnesota. There's nothing the Lakers can do defensively to combat Minnesota. The Lakers are going to beat Minnesota. It's going to be with their offense. Game 2 was an aberration because Game 2 Minnesota was just kind of seemingly mailed it in and played miserable offensive basketball. coming off what they did against the Lakers in Game One. Other than that, Minnesota has had their way with the Lakers defense. And again, that's not the Lakers' strength. The Lakers are going to win. We're going to win series, win games with their offense. It's going to be because of the domination, the mastery of LeBron and Luka picking people apart. And right now, this roster is not constructed. This is a roster that's in between LeBron and Luka. It's more a LeBron roster than it is a Luka roster. It's not even a great LeBron roster because they have a couple of shooters, but they don't have a ton of great shooting. They have improved their 3-point shooting. They have shot the three ball okay in this series, but this is not this roster in order to get to the next level to where they can win a championship needs to be revolved around Luka. Again, I'm not going to kill JJ Redick. I'm not a JJ Redick fan. I'm not the biggest JJ Redick fan, but I'm not going to kill JJ Redick for playing um the entire for playing going with the same starting five, not starting five, going with the same five the entire half. The Laker bench is trash, to say the least. They don't have I mean their bench is just, we're talking Gabe Vincent, Jared Vanderbilt, Jordan Goodwin. I mean, what are we talking about here with the bench? Like, you compare that to what Minnesota is bringing off the bench. I mean, Nas Reed, DiVincenzo. Nas Reed has missed one shot in the fourth quarter of this entire series. He's missed. I repeat, he's missed one shot, and he can guard multiple people. So, like, not like Nas Reed has been spectacular in this series. You look at and he's going to get paid this summer. Uh, Defensively, you look at what Nas Reed was doing, did defensively yesterday. So, you know, Luka Doncic was 3 for 6, okay, but for defensively, Nas Reed is able to match up. He can switch on a Luka Doncic. He can switch on a LeBron James. He has that type of versatility to switch to where you can go small. And you look at their lineups. Look at their best lineup. Their number one lineup, their go-to lineup is the Edwards, Randall, DiVincenzo, Reed, McDaniels lineup. Um, that lineup uh, has been great over the course of this series. In 22 minutes, they have an offensive rating of 128 and a defensive rating of 75. That's like a plus 53 rating in 22 minutes when they've been on the court together. They have been the dominant lineup out of all the lineups played. They have been with at least as double digits in minutes. They have been the dominant lineup. Lakers again bad in the fourth quarter. Only scored 19 points, 5 of 18 from the field. LeBron James only had 1 point, but again, I'm not going to get on LeBron James because defensively he was spectacular in the fourth quarter. A couple of block shots, some steals, um, just all over the place. And coming off a game three performance where he goes 38 points. Again, you cannot ask for anything more out of LeBron James than what you're getting in this series. To be honest with you, he had the pedestrian game one, but outside of that, LeBron James has been great in this series. And again, he's 40. He's the guy is 40 years old. But I mean, if you're JJ, you could have bought LeBron and Luka a couple of minutes in that fourth quarter. Like that's you could have bought them at least 2 minutes. They had a 10-point lead going into the fourth quarter of that game. You could have bought them a couple of minutes if you really wanted, if you wanted to. So that was that. Um, Edwards again, his fifth 40-point game of his career. Edwards in the postseason for his career. Edwards in the postseason is about 20. Edwards in the postseason for his career is about 28. Is that 28 points a game for his postseason career? He is approaching, and if they get far enough, he's going to crack 1,000 points for his postseason career. So every postseason that he's participated in, he has come up big and played well. Even when they've been eliminated in the first round, they got eliminated in the first round the first couple of years of his career. Then they had to break through They had the breakthrough, of course, last year, get to the conference final. Listen, I told her, listen, I said this from the beginning. I picked the Lakers in seven, and the Lakers still are not out this series. Like the Lakers, um, down 3-1. The last two games were winnable games. You're down 3-1 with home court advantage. You win. No, the good news with Lakers is that next game is game five is not until game five is tomorrow. Excuse me, game five is Wednesday. You win game five, you put the pressure on them to win game six, and then see what happens with that. But it's highly unlikely. Highly be borderline shocked if they could beat this team three straight games. Minnesota is very comfortable playing the Lakers. And again, they have a size advantage over the Lakers. They have an advantage in athleticism over the Lakers. They have more options than the Lakers. And frankly, Finch has been, JJ Redick, frankly, is being outcoached by Finch. Again, we knew that coming to this series that Finch is a very good coach. They have an excellent coaching staff. They in terms of he knows when to pull out, he knows when to take Gobert out. He knows. I mean, he's understanding the lineups. And to be honest with you, I said, I feared this coming into this series. I didn't expect Minnesota to be up 3-1, but I knew that this was probably the toughest first round matchup that the Lakers could possibly face, even more so than Denver or the Clippers because of the athleticism, the size, how young this team is. This team coming off a year where they got to where some of their play where a lot of few of their players, I know minus Cat, but the core of their players got to the conference finals, and they have not had an answer for not only Anthony Edwards, they have had no answer for Jade McDaniels, who was averaging about 19 a game at almost on 58% shooting. They've had no answer for Julius Randle, who's been their second best player behind Anthony Edwards. Julius Randle is certainly making up for past playoff failures. He has been great, and he's actually defended in this series. He's actually played some of the best defense that he's ever played in his life in the playoffs. In the playoffs, he has not backed down from LeBron at all. He has not backed down from anybody. He's playing great. So that's a lot. They have a lot to overcome. Lakers have a lot to overcome with the overall depth of Minnesota, the overall size of Minnesota, the overall just talent of Minnesota. And again, one thing you've learned in these playoffs, look at the teams that are going to advance. OKC, Cleveland, the last time I checked was destroying Miami. They're going to advance. You have to have depth and quality depth moving forward. Those teams that are going to advance, that individual as Indiana, what they're doing in Milwaukee. Milwaukee has by far the best player in the series, but they don't have the overall depth that Indiana has, and it's basically been playing one against five with Giannis going against Indiana. So that's definitely getting exposed during this series. But we'll see what happens in Game Five on Wednesday for the Lakers. Not too many adjustments to the Lakers that the Lakers can frankly make at this point in the series. We'll see, especially from a lineup standpoint. Maybe he goes to the bench. Maybe he goes to the bench a little bit more in the third quarter to try maybe he goes to his bench a little bit more. That's the only adjustment I see from that standpoint in terms of the minutes. The minutes are starting to pile up, but you're in the win or go home game. So, if you're willing to play this many minutes in game four, as you treat it like a elimination game, you treat it like a game seven. Then I don't see that much changing for a game five. Look at the other playoff series. That are going on. Just as always, forgot to tell you, as always, you can like, subscribe, or share this podcast. Your support is greatly appreciated. Greatly appreciated this podcast. You can find this podcast where all podcasts are available, including my YouTube channel. Great weekend. I mentioned at the top of the podcast, a great weekend of basketball. Let's rewind and go back to Saturday, because you saw two legends showing completely carrying their teams. We begin with the Joker game, with arguably the game of the playoffs. The Clippers and the Nuggets. This has been easily the best series of the playoffs, and I thought it would be. We knew they had a chance to be special. The Nuggets, of course, win on the game-winning dunk by one Aaron Gordon with zero point 0.1 seconds. I thought initially in the first half, I thought that it wasn't good, but then I thought that I was like, this can't be good. But he was in right place at right time. A wild game to say the least. You saw the Nuggets were up 22, destroying the Clippers in the third quarter. I mean, absolutely destroying the Clippers. The Clippers completely flipped the script in the fourth quarter, and the Nuggets couldn't. The Nuggets were basically tried to run out the clock, and it didn't work. And you see Kawhi, you seeing the Nuggets acting like they had never seen a zone defense before. But you got guys like Bogdanovich playing some of the best defense of his career. You got, Kawhi gets hot. James Harden is finding Norman Powell gets hot. And the next thing you know, I mean, Clippers actually took the lead. And down the stretch, Joker just made this incredible shot over Zubac, who played perfect defense on the possession. On the possession, we think we're going to overtime, tied at 99, and then what happens. Denver, really a devastating loss for the Clippers. Joker, first of all, 36, 21, and 8, 43 minutes. Gordon and Porter play gutty games. They're both fighting injuries right now, especially Porter playing with the bad shoulder. No Westbrook. And the reason why that's important, uh, Westbrook, Denver's best lineup in terms of plus minus has been with Russell Westbrook on the floor. So that was a big loss. They're not deep to begin with. Um, so a golden opportunity missed by the Clippers. Clippers, that series goes to 3-1. That series is over. You know what I mean? That's it. Denver just wouldn't have enough energy. The Clippers are a better team. The Clippers have outplayed Denver for the most part. They're part of the Clippers will probably think that they should be up, that they should have won this series 4-0. To be honest with you, they've clearly outplayed the Clippers, outplayed the Nuggets in this series. But here we stand, with Denver having not only won this game but having regained home court advantage, and 2 out of the next 3 games will be in Denver. The Florida series, I picked Denver in 7. I'm not confident, even with the series tied 2-2, even with 2 out of the next 3 possible games at home. I'm not confident with that pick. Even now, considering how much they've been outplayed, considering the wear and tear with that team right now. Now they'll probably get West. I'm assuming we haven't. There's been no confirmation. I'm assuming that they will get Westbrook back for Game 5. The good news for them is, excuse me. The good news for them is that Game 5. They play Saturday. Game 5 is tomorrow, so they got the extra day off, and they need that extra day. To be honest with you, but after that, it's every other. After that, it's every other day. A golden opportunity blown by the Clippers. Clippers absolutely. I'm not gonna say should have won that game because they were down by 22 and made a great comeback, but they really had a chance to put the hammer on Denver, a Denver team that seemingly was limping. Was limping. It was on his last rights, basically. But give them a credit. That was a championship gutty win. They are champions. The core of that team has won a championship. Um, and again, I can't see. I don't see a scenario where this does not end up in a game 7. I think I just think we are headed towards a game 7. I think that certain series you watch, and they said, and you'll say, and, you'll know that this is bound to be a 7th game, and I think the series falls under that, under that category. Um, and of course, if it gets to a 7th game, you have to give Denver an edge being home court and having the best player having the best player on the floor. If the Clippers are going to win this series, Kawhi has to have at least another one majestic type performance. he was good. Like he was good on Saturday. He has to be great. He has to be either near or the equal of Jokic. He doesn't have to be better than Jokic, but he has to be close to Jokic. To Jokic. Jokic Saturday was just like what I mean, all time great, good, great. He was all over the place. The stuff that I mean, they're asking him to do everything. Um, they're asking, I mean, in terms of running the offense, bringing the ball. I mean, they're asking him to do just everything. When I mean everything, I mean offensively every single thing that what they're asking him to do, and he certainly is more than capable of that. But so he was spectacular. He was, I mean, again, that was a vintage Jokic performance, and we knew that that was coming. Yeah, they had actually done up to that point. I thought the Clippers had defended Joker as well as you could possibly defend him. He had, his numbers. He still was averaging a triple double and shooting about 50% from the field. But they really had made him work. Zubac certainly has earned his money in this series. He's been great, been consistent, having to guard Joker in this series. But that game Saturday, it was Joker was by far the best player on the floor. Did whatever he wanted to do on the floor, did whatever he wanted to do, and was just dominant. And it's why he's the best player. He's the MVP and the best player in the world for a reason. Again, I can't wait till Game Five. Game Five, that will be an intense. That will be a physical that game. That Game Five. Game Fives at 2-2. There's nothing better in the NBA than Game Fives at 2-2. I mean, those games are highly physical. There's been the playoffs in general have been physical. This weekend, what you saw at Detroit, New York, what you saw, I mean, we in Houston, Golden State, you've had some very physical series for the most part. With the exception of, like, let's put aside the OKC and but OKC, Memphis, Miami, Cleveland. Forget about those series, and even Milwaukee, Indiana. But Knicks, Detroit, Houston, Golden State, Denver, Clippers. Those have been some very physical. There have been some very physical series. The Lakers, not so much. Lakers, Minnesota actually has been somewhat free flowing, with the exception of Game Two. I mean, there has been actually a free flowing series. I know you had a lot of fouls called. Had a lot of fouls called yesterday in the LA game, in the LA Minnesota game, but that wasn't because of physicality. That wasn't, you still had a ton of shot making and scoring. It wasn't the more, I've seen way more physical games in the playoffs than that. But that Game Five, with it being the only 2-2 series in these playoffs, that should be something to see, and certainly would be looking forward to it. And of course, Saturday night, you had another Steph Curry just outright just carrying his team, with the just a tremendous performance, 36, 9, and 7. Um, playing the majority, playing heavy minutes. No Jimmy Butler. He is scoring in this series. He's scoring about 30% of the team's points. And there was a stretch in that game where you thought Houston was up double digits in the second quarter, and they were doing actually a decent job against Steph Curry. And then all of a sudden, Steph Curry just explodes, and he kind of picks his spots. He goes through his games. He doesn't get flustered, even when he's not making shots. Even when it seems like he's struggling. Next thing you know, he has 20 points, and he really, over the course of his career, has had his way with the Houston Rockets. I thought Houston. Listen, I know Houston has limitations from a scoring standpoint, but they have a significant advantage on the glass and a significant advantage inside. They have outscored them in the paint. They have outscored Golden State in the paint every game of this series. They out rebounded them on average 50 to 38. Steven Adams has been a plus 16 per 100 possessions when he's been on the court, when he's been on the floor. They've given that's the only way that's the only chance that they have. You cannot count on Jalen Green by any stretch of the imagination. Even though he's averaging 18 points a game, shooting, just under about 39% from the field. He's been awful in this series. He has had one good game in this series, and I don't want to hear him. He shouldn't be talking to anybody the way he's played in this series outside of the game two victory. He cannot be the barometer. Like he can't you can't be counting on Jalen Green. If you count on Jalen Green, then they're going to be in trouble offensive from an offensive standpoint. We knew that was a problem with shot creations coming into the series. So to me, listen, Houston's not a championship team. We understand that, but to me, their best course of action is to make the game ugly, uh, and really take advantage of their size. They have a significant size advantage in terms of their physicality against Golden State. You can't be get the Gary Paytons of the world. Those guys, you can't let those guys kill you. Steph was going to be Steph. And by the way, Jimmy Butler will play tonight. I just saw that Jimmy Butler will Jimmy Butler will play tonight. So we'll see. I mean, we will see what that looks like for him tonight. But I mean, outside of Steph, I mean, again, they like Golden State struggles to score outside of Steph Curry. Cleveland is eviscerating Miami right now. Man, oh my God! Like I didn't watch the Cleveland Miami game on Saturday. I caught the highlights and caught some stuff, and I didn't like it. You knew what this was. Uh, you knew what this was at the game too. So like Cleveland and OKC are basically going to have had bye rounds. Going into the second round, they're going to be issued. So both those teams should be absolutely well rested, considering considering their first round opponents. As we saw OKC sweep Memphis, and Cleveland's going to do the same to Miami. But again, getting back to Houston, Houston's best course of action is to just completely make this a rock fight, completely make this an ugly game. They've done a decent job but it even has to get more. It has to get more uglier for them to even have a chance in this series. Now, we'll see what happens. All they had to do was come to Golden State, win one game, and get back home court advantage to make it 2-2. So we'll see what happens. I would like to see more Steven Adams, more Jabari Smith on the floor, possibly. Less Jalen Green. Jalen Green's playing about 35 minutes. 35 minutes. Again, he played 38 minutes. He goes 4 for 11, 1 for 5 from the 3-point range, from 3-point line. He did have 6 rebounds and 5 assists, but was a minus 14. Only had 9 points. So they just struggle to score in this series. Overall, you look at what they're doing in this series. They are averaging. And again, Golden State was an excellent defensive team, especially after they got Jimmy Butler. But Houston in the series only averaging 95 points a game, offensive rating of 104.3. That's horrible, by the way, if you're wondering. Shooting 33% from the 3-point range, from the 3-point line, only 41% overall. So they cannot, they can't, they just cannot score. Nobody even cracking 20 points a game. As far as in terms of their lineup. Again, Curry in this series, 29, 6, and 7 on 52% from the field, 45% from from three, and 92% from the line. I mean, you can't play any better considering some of the defenses that he has to face, the grabbing, he's getting face guarded. I mean, they're throwing everything at Curry. It doesn't matter. It really hasn't mattered in this series. So it certainly would be welcome for them, for Golden State, to get Jimmy Butler back. And if you're Golden State, you don't want to mess around in this series, especially against a physical team like Houston. You don't want Houston's a young team. You want to put them, you want to put them away right here, right now. You don't want to have them give them any confidence that they can win this series. I mean, 2-2 going back to Houston. The idea of having to play 2 more games if you were to lose this. You're Golden State, you're thinking big picture, especially if Minnesota is able to put the Lakers away. You want to get, if you are Golden State, you want to get as much rest as possible, considering the road that you have coming up ahead of you. In regards to if you want to make a long run in these playoffs. So it'll be interesting to watch that game tonight, as we see if Houston can kind of get the series back evenly. I'm going to save the Milwaukee, Indiana for later on in the podcast. Boston, Orlando. Um, Boston, again, as expected, in total control of that series up 3-1. But give Orlando a lot of credit. Orlando has really bothered Boston from a physical standpoint. Orlando's physicality has gotten under Boston's skin. You heard Jalen Brown talking about it's not basketball anymore. Boston has been nicked up. Jason Tatum has missed the game with the wrist injury. Drew Holiday with the hamstring. So Boston, similar to Golden State, Boston needs to get that series over with as soon as possible. Orlando again has fought. They won Game 3 on Friday. Last night they didn't really have a chance to win that game. They weren't going to win that game. Boston was in control for the most part. The game out Tatum with the 37-14. But what they've done, they've really hit Boston with some body blows that could affect Boston moving forward. Especially if Boston is to get to the conference finals. To face seemingly inevitable matchup against the Cleveland Cavaliers, with all due respect to the Indiana Pacers and the New York Knicks, who are both up 3-1 as well. So those teams. So Boston needs to get that series over with just as quickly as possible. And because again, similar to Houston, that is, they are the Orlando Magic are a physical team. They're a very physical team. They like to play in the mud. They like the rock. They love the rock fights. So they need to get that. They need to get that series over with as quickly as possible. I know the Eastern Conference is basically wrapped up as far as these first round series. All the Eastern Conference series are 3-1. You see Detroit lose a heartbreaker to the Knicks yesterday afternoon. Sure, if you're a Detroit fan, you are, still can't get over the fact that Tim Hardaway Jr. was fouled, and he was fouled. One 3-point shot down by one, but the bottom line is Tim Hardaway Jr. He's not going to get that call. These officials. One thing you got to know about NBA officials during playoff time, they do not want to decide the game. They don't want any part of deciding the game on a call. They don't. They more times than not, they will inherently swallow their whistles. Period. Point blank. They would. It almost has to be blatant for there to be a foul call. Like, I mean, yeah, like it really does. Like, so, Hardaway did get fouled. But that game was more about the fourth quarter heroics of Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns. Karl-Anthony Towns' shot making was incredible. Jalen Brunson doing what he does in the fourth quarter. You give Detroit a lot of credit for coming back. They looked dead in the first quarter of that game. Cade Cunningham played a spectacular game. Tobias Harris played a gutty game. Beasley started making shots for the first time, basically since possibly game one. Back in New York, he's been terrible. He's been, for the most part, he's been bad in the series, but he got hot. And Detroit, listen, this is Detroit. This is them taking those hits, going through those growing pains of playoff basketball. Knicks, absolutely are a superior team to Detroit. The Knicks, Jason Hart had a big game yesterday as well. But listen, that call, Detroit fans could complain until the cows go home with that call or lack thereof. The bottom line is that's probably a game where I can't sit here and say Detroit deserved to win that game. I can't say so because of how dominant Towns and Brunson were in that game. I expect the Knicks to wrap that series up in 5. Again, similar to these other teams, if you're the Knicks, you want to get that series over with, especially Brunson and the lack of depth that the Knicks have. Precious Achiuwa can't get on the floor. And we all know that that rotation is always tight with Coach Tibbs, and he's only going to play a certain amount of players, so they certainly would need the rest as much as anybody in these particular playoffs. But again, I think Detroit has played. I think Detroit has played a solid series. Detroit has been like they had a bad fourth quarter in game one. They won game two. The two games Detroit could have went either way. So Detroit has acquitted themselves very well in their first playoff appearance going since 2000 and what 2008. I mean, excuse me, 2009. So it's 17 years. They haven't been to playoffs in 17 years. Um, there's some nice young pieces. Of course, Cade coming in, Cunningham will be an All NBA this year. He's an All Star. Will probably finish top 10 in MVP voting. He's going to be a tremendous player. And still trying to figure it out. Figure it out. As far as I just think sometimes he gets caught in between. Had a few turnovers, unforced turnovers yesterday, but for the most part, but really, he really from a leadership standpoint, he's a guy that you want as your franchise player. I mean, there was a situation where he pushed one of his teammates off. Seemingly, his teammate was about to get a technical for taunting, and he pushed him. Ronald, I think Hollins pushed Hollins away. Ronald Holland pushed Holland away. So that's the type of leadership that you want to see out of a player, and out of your number one guy, which he is. But the Knicks should wrap that series up back in New York. Back in New York come tomorrow. We're going to shift gears to the NFL draft, in particular to one Shedeur Sanders. Of course, that without question is the story of the draft. Um, Shedeur Sanders was not only falls out in the first round, but fell to pick number 144. He falls to the fifth round. Um, and it's interesting. The questions of why and how could this happen, and there's a lot going into this. We see the media's reactions. We see the media people that love Deion Sanders versus media people uh, who don't who kind of saw this coming, or kind of I think were happy that this happened. So there was a lot going on from that standpoint with this. Here's what I say. So coming into this draft, Shedeur Sanders was ranked 27th on the Ringers big board. That's late first round, of course. 41st on Yahoo Sports. That's early second round. 34th on the Athletics board. That's early second round. Daniel Jeremiah of NFL Network had him the 20th best player in the class. 20th best player in the class. That's first, of course, a first round. That's of course first round. None of those picks, like none of those, had him as a top 5 or top 10 pick. And what you're finding out is the perception of something versus the reality of this particular situation. He never was considered to be a top prospect as far as can't miss prospect, top 5, top 10. Teams just the people whose opinions actually matter on this just didn't view him that way. Now, there are media people, Mel Kiper Jr., had him as the number one player, excuse me, number one quarterback on his board. Number one quarterback on his board. Okay. There are, when all this is happening, there were a number of media pundits who immediately came to the aid of Shedeur and Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders once worked for the NFL Network. Deion Sanders is a likable, charismatic big personality who, frankly, in his 2 years at Colorado, and even going back to the years at Jackson State, has frankly been a cash cow for networks and ratings, especially the last 2 years at Colorado. If you notice, every Colorado game this year was on national television. How much discourse, how much talk about Dion and Shedeur and Travis Hunter did we hear over the course of this college football season? Every week. So Dion had some cachet, some ratings cachet amongst the football culture in college football, uh, to say the least. But the NFL powers that be, the guys, the scouts, the personnel people, they don't give a shit about that. That's not how they pick players. That's not they don't care about that. And you're coming to find out, most of the scouts, the top scouts, had him as a late first round, early second round pick in a weak quarterback draft. If this were an average, an average to above average quarterback draft, he probably would have been a third or fourth round. He probably would have been getting third or fourth round grades. All this is important because when the NFL and the powers that be had that perception of you, you can't move like he and Dion were moving. Yeah, I mean, I've seen video clips. Cameron Hall. We can go across the board. I've seen video clips. Basically, Dion saying there are certain teams that my son will not play for. If you are John Elway and you are a generational talent who was considered to be one that had considered at that time to be one of the best, most physically gifted quarterbacks prospects ever, and Elway was. You can go read the stuff for yourself and have the option of playing baseball. Elway did get drafted. I want to say he got drafted by the Yankees. Um, and you threaten to say, you know what, I'm not playing for the Colts. I'll go play baseball. You had that kind of power. Eli Manning in a draft that featured Philip Rivers and Ben Roethlisberger, he was the guy that was the number one quarterback in that draft. Uh, Easily, he was the number one quarterback, number one prospect. Okay, he had the power. He had the power. Archie Manning had the leverage to say we're not playing for San Diego. Period. Like he had that type of leverage because there were other teams that wanted him at the top of the draft. Period. Point blank. He had that type of leverage. You can't compare Shedeur Sanders to Eli Manning by any stretch of imagination as a prospect. There's just zero comparison in regards to how he was regarded by the scouts and by the league. So Shedeur never had that type of leverage. Dion they never had that type of leverage to move like they were moving. Now, I don't get caught up in the interviews and shit like that because who knows? Like the giant one was the one that jumped out with the whole whiteboard and the install and that he was seemingly was unprepared. We've heard stories where he came in with his headphones on. They call it some of the interviews. They would use the term sandbagging. Okay, listen. We've heard these stories before about players not going through the interviews and not taking them serious. But guess what? Some of those guys we've heard those stories about still have gotten drafted because of the perceived talent and what teams thought about them. And that's what I don't think is getting enough credit here. I think immediately, and I understand the way the NFL moves. And listen, the NFL is racist. Like, let's be honest, the NFL is inherently how the NFL's history of how they treat it, how they. And I'm watching this series now on Amazon. I would encourage it. The evolution of a black quarterback, which was created by Michael Vick, just tremendous, great watching. I would encourage it. Like the NFL has put black quarterbacks through some shit. Like, I mean, you can go look at what Warren Moon, what Doug Williams had to go through, and so on and so on. And Charlie Ward not getting drafted. So there's a history of how the NFL has treated Lamar Jackson. Even though he was a first round pick, one of the coaches wanted him to switch to play cornerback or not to to try out for cornerback or to switch positions, which was insane. So the NFL has not had the greatest relationship in terms of their history with black quarterbacks. So I think people are inherently sensitive and are inherently ready to jump to the racial aspect of this immediately. And I think that blinded a lot of people in regards to this. This was a again, I think race played somewhat of a part in this. I don't think it wasn't the end all be all, but this situation was this thing was so layered and nuanced that it even exceeded race. To be perfectly honest with you, the NFL is about the shield. The NFL, that was the title of title of the podcast. The shield is a shield. They will protect. The NFL is going to protect the shield at all times, at all costs. They don't want a player who they don't believe is that good to begin with to be remotely considered the face of the league. To be remotely considered the face of the league. Matter of fact, they don't even want a face of the league. You know who they want to be the face of the league? Roger Goodell. Like, I mean, seriously, that's who they ideally want to be the face of the league. They don't move like the NBA. They don't want this to be a players' league. This is about the shield. It's always been about the shield, and frankly, it always will be about the shield. And they can move like that because they have the most powerful sports product on earth. Like the NFL, the ratings. You watch the ratings. The schedule release is coming out. Is coming out. I think May 14th. Those ratings will be higher than the NBA Finals. I promise you. Yes, the schedule release. I can't wait to see what the ratings were from this draft. I'm sure they were just off the charts considering what transpired with Shedeur. So the idea of a guy who's not going to start at quarterback this year, and Shedeur was not going to start this year. Is more than likely will not start this year at quarterback. He may, I don't know, he might. Let me take that back because that quarterback room is not the greatest in Cleveland. Like that, it's conceivable that he could start. But a guy that a guy that a lot of people didn't have as a top flight, that most didn't have as a top pick, a can't miss generational type quarterback. You're not going to come in and dictate your terms or try or bully the NFL. It's just not going to happen. Deion Sanders, again, completely. They were enormous. Shedeur Sanders is not a fifth round quarterback. We all know that. You're probably closer to a second. But the truth of the matter is, there were no first round quarterback. There was one first round quarterback this year. Jackson Dart, to me, is not a first round quarterback. I thought that was a major reach by the Giants taking him. I watched Mississippi. I watched Ole Miss this year. Excuse me. Mississippi has a ton of talent around him, offensively and defensively. And that was a major reach for the Giants to take him. Legitimately, Cam Ward was the only quarterback that probably should have went the first round. But certainly, we all know Shedeur Sanders is not a fifth round quarterback. But the point is, the NFL was going to make an example out of him because they didn't think the personnel, the people around him, the people within the league just didn't think he was that good. Didn't think he was that good. And I'll say this, and this is a lesson in life: you can't piss everybody off. You got to have some allies. You cannot piss everybody off. Everybody was turned off by Shedeur Sanders and Deion Sanders. Everybody. Scouts, executives, owners, everybody, with the exception of mock draft pundits like Mel Kiper Jr. Well, for all no one cared. Like Mel Kiper Jr. Mel Kiper Jr. is not a scout. He doesn't make the personnel decisions for teams. He's great at his job, and he's been doing it for a long, long time, over 40 years. But like personnel people are not calling Mel Kiper Jr. and telling him and asking his opinion on who should be drafted. Now he might reach out to personnel people and ask his opinion on what they think about this guy, and he certainly has some intel within the league. He does, along with, well, I'm sure he does. But I think this is a lesson in terms of it. Just was it actually was fascinating to see how the different machinations of the media and how everybody kind of went in their corner, and this person and this faction of the media went in their corner. So there was a lot going on with this situation. Listen, I defended Shedeur Sanders a few months ago, and said just forget about the fact that he's Deion Sanders' son. Just look at what he could do on the field. On the field, tough, accurate, but the bottom line is, there was nothing spectacular that these scouts, for the most part, didn't see anything that was spectacular about him in regards to his ability to throw a football. And you cannot move the way he moved. Uh, you can't move the way he moved without there being a price to be paid. And again, it's been a long time. A long. We haven't seen anything like this in forever. Like we haven't think about how many people that they had to piss off to for this to happen. Guys dropping the draft because of injuries, because of off the field issues for the most part. Now, not even that. For I mean, you had a guy in Baltimore, and that's not even the case all the time. You had a guy in Baltimore drafted in the second round who's been accused of sexual assault in high school and in college. And from what I heard and read, did not have the greatest interview, to say the least, in some of the questions when they were asking him about those particular cases. Didn't give the greatest answers. And he still got drafted by a premier franchise in the Baltimore Ravens, who, are a legit Super Bowl contender, in the second round. Like, so that lets you know if a team really likes you, they don't care about your character. But if you move with a certain type of arrogance and trying to make yourself bigger than the NFL, and you're not on that level from a talent standpoint, the NFL just showed you what will happen. Again, this I think a lot of people reacted to this because this is something that frankly that has never happened. We haven't seen a guy drop this far because of perceived attitude or bad or blown off workouts, or not workouts, but combines and things of that nature. We have this is a very unique situation in the history in the most recent history of the NFL draft. So he gets drafted by Cleveland. They have an interesting quarterback room to say the least. He will have an opportunity to start because they don't have Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel. Sean Watson will not play this year. He's going to be on the pup list, and they're as we speak probably are looking for a way out that contract. So he's going to have an opportunity to play this year, and I venture to say that he will make the they'll teams generally carry three quarterbacks going into the season. He will be one of those three quarterbacks, I believe, and he will get his opportunity to play. So we'll see what happens in regards to that. Best of the 21st century. We continue our series of looking at the best of the 21st century in terms of music, pop culture, and what have you. And today we look at Good Kid, Mad City, Kendrick Lamar's second album that was released back in October, on October 22nd of 2012. Of course, Maad stands for My Angry Adolescence Divided and My Angels on Angel Dust. That's what Maad stood for. This album was on the still to this day is on the Billboard charts. 651 weeks has spent 651 weeks on the Billboard charts. Right now, even up to this week, it's ranked. It's ranked out of 200 albums. It's ranked on the Billboard 200 charts. It is ranked 34, at the 34th position. That is the Kendrick Lamar stimulus package right now. Like Kendrick, all his old hits, no matter how old they are, some of them albums and singles are all up and down these charts. So this was an album that you go back to 2012. Big year for West Coast music. A year, Schoolboy Q comes out, Absol, Macklemore comes out. This is before This is the calm before the storm in terms of the Kendrick, Drake, and J. Cole takeover of rap and of rap. Like there's no big three at this point. Now all those guys have released their own albums. J. Cole came out in 2011. Drake came out with an album in 2013. Of course, Kendrick came out in 2010. So all they had all done individual projects up until that point. It's not like so, but during that time, especially in 2012, it was not they were not universally recognized as the three top guys in rap. It wasn't that time yet. Like I said, that was still roughly probably a couple years away, 1 or 2 years away. I think that probably started. I want to say when Pimp a Butterfly came out in 2015, and Forest Hill Drive comes out in 2014. So that probably started then when those guys separated themselves from everyone else. This is before the Control verse in 2013 when in 2013 before that. Um, we listened to this album. I mean, I've listened to this album countless times, but this was a master storytelling. This was a I don't want to say a love letter, but this was Kendrick really taking you inside of his life in Compton, growing up in Compton. You can call it a coming of age. You're seeing him, he's telling you stories when he was falling in love or his first crush at age 17. Um, the song I'm Dying of Thirst, 12 minutes, over 12 minutes long. He had, hits. Uh, he had a number of hits. He had a few hits come off of this. Money Trees is the most streamed song he had off this album. But this was he's come out, and Kendrick has come out with a few personal albums. This, I can make a case, was one of his more personal albums where he's showing, not maybe his most personal, I would say Mr. Morale. I think he was at his most vulnerable in Mr. Morale, to be honest with you. But this album, this was him showing you who he was at the time and what was going to what was leading him to become who he is right now. It is in conversation without question, is in the conversation for best album of the decade, the 2010s, without question. There are people who like this album more than they like Pimp a Butterfly. You can go back and forth. I would lean towards Pimp a Butterfly, but I certainly understand the argument for this album being superior to Pimp a Butterfly. But he was really, you talk about again master storytelling. I'm talking about on the level of Nas, on the level of Slick Rick. I mean, this is on the level of Biggie. This is storytelling where you can close your eyes, listen to the album, and you can, and especially I've been to California. I've been fortunate to I've been to LA a couple times now, and I see. I've never been to. I don't think I've never been to Compton. I've never been that part of LA. Part of LA. Maybe driven through it, but you can close your eyes and you can see his world through what he's saying. And again, you're talking about production from Dr. Dre, talking about production from Pharrell. Um, Very powerful album. He This was his first real commercial success album. Section 80 was a dope album, but Section 80 didn't have nowhere near the commercial success that this album had. And this album really, in a sense, put him on the map and made it known that he was going to be a problem for many, many years to come. Again, this there's a reason why this album has been on the Billboard charts for now. It's going to be 651 weeks, and I don't anticipate the way you know now that he is unofficially or officially the top guy in rap and hip hop right now. I don't anticipate that this album will ever be off those charts. Um, Most of the reviews I read on this album were great. Were It was a highly critical album, a well reviewed album. Um, and again, when you listen to the album, it has a distinct, he had a distinct sound, a distinct style. He was clearly, there's some, I mean, you know that he clearly was influenced by Nas. There's some, um, he pays homage to a Nas line, sleep is the enemy of death, cousin of death, in one of the songs. So you see the Nas, you see the Nas influence from that standpoint. But for the most part, this was him. This was him being, he was himself. Like this was a distinct. He had his own distinct sound. Still has his own distinct sound. You don't listen to Kendrick and say he sounds like this or sounds like that. Like he is unique. He's a 101, and that's why in my opinion, one of the greatest rappers of all time, and maybe top three, in my opinion, top three, and the number one guy right now in the game. This again, good kid, Mad City, best of the 2000s, best of the 21st century, 2000s. Very again a very very introspective album and just telling you, just telling in terms of storytelling. Uh, Great album, classic album, and certainly is on our list for this week of best of the 21st century. Couple of real thoughts before I let you go. So in regards to the NFL draft, I thought obviously we've gone over the Shedeur part. We've done the Shedeur stuff. Cleveland, you know, I thought Cleveland absolutely fleeced the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville trades up to get Travis Hunter. Cleveland gets a second and fourth, and most more importantly, gets Jacksonville's 21st number one pick, first round pick in 2026. Cleveland's putting themselves in a position where they will have two first round picks next year, where they can go after a quarterback if they want to. It's going because next year it's supposed to be a strong quarterback class. Much is a strong quarterback class in 2026. I don't know, like Jacksonville to me, when you give up the type of draft capital that they gave up, to me, you have to do that. I had to be getting back I have to be drafting a franchise quarterback. Like drafting Trav, they don't even know what position Travis Hunter is going to play primary, it's going to be primary at cornerback or wide receiver. You don't know. And even if he said it was going to be cornerback, which I think is going to be would be his best position if he just focused on that, that's still not enough. That's still way too much capital to give up to trade for a cornerback. It really is. Like to me, this is a situation. And again, I'm not doubting Travis Hunter is a beast. He was consensus considered to be the best player in this draft, Heisman Trophy winner. I think if he focuses just on being a cornerback, I think he has a chance to be an all-time great player. But I think that's way too much capital to give up to get a cornerback or receiver. I just think it is. I think that Cleveland, if you're Cleveland, you have to. I love this deal for Cleveland. Don't hate it for Jacksonville. Don't like it for Jacksonville. It's just way too much. I can't say I hate it because you still got Travis Hunter, but a first round in 2026, that's a steep price to pay for a non-quarterback. Um, you saw in the first round, a third of the players selected in the first round were either offensive tackles or defensive tackles. Again, only two quarterbacks selected in the first round. So the NFL told you that this was a weak quarterback draft, and they were not going to make the same mistake they made with the Kenny Pickett draft a few years ago in terms of reaching for quarterbacks. This just wasn't going to happen. They told you in essence they liked one quarterback primarily. That was Cam Ward, who went with the number one pick. the Giants trade up for Jackson Dart, but outside of that, there was not a reach for quarterbacks this year. So the NFL, GMs kind of got smart in terms of how they gauged that. A few years ago, of course, they were reaching for a number of quarterbacks, and that has turned out to be a disaster. A lot of those guys have either been moved on from their other teams or will have no chance of starting on their particular teams. That's that Justin Fields. That's that Justin Fields, Kenny Pickett draft where you had like five quarterbacks taken in the first round. I love what the Rams did. Rams get a second extra. They get they trade out of the first round. Um, give Atlanta their first round pick, and they get a first. The Rams will get Atlanta's first round pick in 2026. So the Rams are going to have two first round picks next year, and next year the Rams more than likely will take a quarterback to try to replace, or be to either replace or be groomed to be the replacement for Matthew Stafford. So that was one of those moves that wouldn't so much get under the radar, go under the radar because people were killing Atlanta, basically saying, what is Atlanta doing? What is Atlanta doing? Giving up a first round in the future, giving up a future first rounder. Um, SEC 79 selections, Big Ten 71 selections, ACC 42. So again, it's been a recurring theme this year. The power of the SEC and Big Ten in college football. They run college football, and those numbers, Tennessee, Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, all those teams had double digits in terms of draft selections. That will not stop anytime soon. Even Mississippi, which did not have a good year, a relatively good year this year, kind of underachieved, didn't make the playoffs. They had eight first round, eight draft picks. Um, I'll get back to I'll wrap up the program with Milwaukee and in particular Giannis, because Milwaukee is absolutely getting housed by Indiana. Indiana is just too much speed, shooting the lights out offensively. They're just absolutely toying with the Milwaukee Bucks. I mean, it's basically 1 against 5, despite the fact that Giannis in this series has been spectacular. Giannis, um, yeah, Giannis in this series is averaging 30. Giannis in this series averaging 33 points, 14 rebounds, 5 assists on 62% from the field, and even making his free throws, 71% from the line in just under 36 minutes. The problem is the next closest guy, the second leading scorer, is Gary Trent Jr. And that's the problem. The roster is awful. Um, their roster is awful. The Pacers have done offensively have done whatever they wanted to from offensive standpoint against Milwaukee, and they have again Milwaukee has no like they have no answers for them, and Damian Lillard tears his Achilles, so he's going to be done not only for the rest of these playoffs, but for the foreseeable future. And now, if I'm Giannis, you have to strongly consider about what is your future going to look like in Milwaukee. That team has no pathways towards getting better. Damian Lillard would have been a trade asset minus the injury, but that's no longer the case. He's no longer like you can't trade Damian Lillard. Like that's nobody's taking a 35-year old guard coming off of Achilles. This is not going to happen. Especially making the money that he's making. He's owed like close over $50 million. So then, if you're the Milwaukee Brass, the only trade asset is Giannis, who is at worst the third best player. I think the second best player, finished third in the MVP this year. Still at the top of his game, coming off statistically his best season. And if you're Giannis, you can get a Rudy Gobert, Mikal Bridges haul for Giannis, like a 5 first round draft picks, some swaps, and a good player for Giannis. He's that well regarded in the NBA, that respected, that highly sought after in the NBA. And there are 2 or 3 teams that would be a Giannis away from competing for a championship. Houston, San Antonio, possibly. I'm thinking of teams with the draft assets, depending on what happens in the playoffs with OKC. Um, So I think that the next game that Milwaukee plays against Indiana, it'll probably and Indiana. I'll be shocked if Indiana doesn't finish Milwaukee off in five. Uh, Back in Indiana will more than likely be the last game that Giannis plays in a Milwaukee Bucks uniform. Giannis is a guy who cares about his legacy. He wants to win another championship. Um, he's been there again. He's been there over a decade. Giannis was drafted in the 2013. Okay, he was a part of the 2013 draft. Been there over a decade. Um, has far exceeded any expectation that we thought that we had coming out that draft. Nobody. I mean, I know you drafted just outside the lottery at the 15th, with the 15th pick was considered to be a project, and is going on to become an all-time great. Giannis is probably in that range of one of the 15 to 20 greatest players in NBA history. Uh, Brought Milwaukee a championship, had one of the great postseason runs of all time, finals, one of the great finals of all time in recent memory in 2021. He's done everything he could do in Milwaukee. And at this point, again, they have no way, no means, no way to improve the roster around him. And you look at the landscape of the Eastern Conference, they are they are way below. Like they're not even close to Indiana. They're not close to Boston, Cleveland, or the Knicks for that matter. They're not even close to any of those teams. And Orlando is coming. I would take a healthy Orlando. I would take a healthy Orlando's roster over Milwaukee's roster in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. Pablo, Banchero, Wagner, Suggs. I mean, Orlando has a very talented roster when all those guys get back healthy, and also they have some draft assets. They can add some players. So Milwaukee probably, I mean, like and I'm not even counting the Western Conference. So within the landscape of the entire NBA, they're not even close to compete for a championship. Not even close. They're not one move away. They're not two. They would have to have a complete overhaul of that roster, and they just don't have the means. There's no way that they can make any moves. They have no draft capital right now. Um, First pick, first or even second round picks for that matter, for the rest of the decade. They are trapped, and they have one way to get out of this and to get a lot of draft capital back, and one way for Giannis to be on a contender again. And that's for him to get traded. And I again, I would be shocked if he's not traded this summer. I'd be shocked. Giannis is not the type to me that's going to sit up here, collect stats, and be on a team that's either at the bottom or the bottom of the conference as far as struggling to make the playoffs, a seventh, eighth seed, or playing. I don't see that Giannis being that type of player. That's going to wrap it up in this latest edition of the Ril Dil podcast. Enjoy the rest of your evening and the rest of your week. So long.